picked up a young gentleman who is riding across country on an electric bicycle. His name was Boris Mordkovich. And we're going to have some coffee. We're going to talk about his electric bicycle and his company and why he's in the middle of doing this. So, Boris, why don't you give us a little bit of your background? What possessed you to decide to ride an electric bicycle across the United States?
Absolutely. So it actually started off not with a bicycle, but rather with a car. A few years ago, I was involved in a startup that did car sharing. It did peer-to-peer car sharing, where essentially it allowed people to rent out cars so that they didn't use that much. And in that time, it was a really interesting insight to see how people commute, how people view transportation, and the fact that a lot of people don't really want to drive. Now, at the same time, as wonderful as a bicycle is, I think that the way that it is right now is that it doesn't fit everybody's needs. So, in some cases it can be because of terrain of where people live. In some cases it can be because of age, fitness levels, or one of many, many factors.
Right.
So, when I came across electric bikes, it was kind of like an aha moment, where you kind of saw all of those barriers being eliminated.
So you bought an electric bicycle, or you tested an electric bicycle, or
Good question. The way that I've come across it was actually through my brother. He built an electric bike for his wife, so that they can go on more rides together and just enjoy more quality time. Because prior to that point, what would happen is that either one of them would be exhausted and trying to catch up with the other person, or the other person would just not be satisfied with the ride. So an electric bike essentially equalized them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And when I was visiting him one day, he offered me to take it for a ride. And I went around the block, feeling very skeptical about it at first. I think that having ridden a regular bike for most of my life, I was, my first reaction to it was, why would somebody want this?
Right.
And then that one single ride changed all of it. I remember when I came back with this giant smile on my face, and it just clicked. It really did. So fast forward about a year later, and my brother and I, we have actually founded Evelo Electric Bicycles, which is an electric bike company based out of New York.
Okay, so how does one go about living in New York City, creating an electric bicycle company? I mean, most bicycles end up coming out of places like China and Taiwan, places like that.
Well, that's true. Now we actually manufacture the bikes overseas, although a lot of the components are designed in Europe and in the States. For example, the motor that we use is designed in Italy, so it has an European influence in it. The important thing about it is, regardless of where a bike is built, because the reality is that most of bikes, regular or electric, are built overseas these days. The important thing about it is educating the customers and then providing the support, because for somebody who's paying $2,000 for an electric bike, they want to know that there is a person, with a support network, there is a company with a support network that can back up their product.
So you went, how did you select the particular bicycles that you're doing, and sort of walk us through that process?
It was definitely a lengthy process. So at first we looked at what's on the market in the U.S. and we looked at what's in the market in Europe. And in the U.S. At this point there were about 15 to 20 different manufacturers, companies that specialize in producing electric bikes for the American market. A lot of them were good models, but for the most part, they were a lot of the models that exist they fall in one of two ranges. They're either very expensive, they price at $3,000 or above, or they are at the lower end of the spectrum, where they're about $500 to $1,000, but you don't really get a whole lot for it. And it's actually a problem, because when somebody buys an electric bike at the lower end of the spectrum, and then they end up being dissatisfied with the performance because of, let's say, the battery life or the weight, or the battery range, it leaves a negative impression in their minds. So we thought that essentially it would be possible to produce electric bikes that fall in the middle of that range, where it's still affordable, where we can do good technology, where we can offer high quality batteries and high quality components, and really produce something that will last and that people will enjoy.
Okay, so you ended up going to China apparently, and looking at what was available there. So,
well, we looked at what's available in our market, really. The market in China right now, the bikes that they produce for the local market, for the Chinese market, they generally wouldn't really work very well for the U.S. Consumers. The bikes that they sell overseas are generally low quality, cheap, but just very bulky, very heavy, and just not something that people here would buy. So eventually we found a manufacturer who was willing to build the bikes to our specifications. And after several months of going back and forth, we put together the concept and produced the bikes. Okay.
So you offer, I think I remember looking at your website, this is, what is the website, just so we can...
No problem. It's www.evelo.com.
Right, E-V-O-L-O, something like that, right?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. So I noticed that you've got 3 different models on there. Why did you have one sort of a mountain bike look, another is kind of intermediate, then there's a sort of a step through more female-oriented bicycle. How did you sort of select those designs?
So essentially, if we look at what people use an electric bike for these days, it falls in one of several categories. It's either commuting. So somebody has a commute that they ordinarily would drive to, but are getting an electric bike so that they can travel, so that they can cycle there. The other part of it is recreation. So these are people who want to get out, spend more time outdoors, and are looking for a more comfortable ride. So the 3 models that we built, we try to focus on these particular categories. So one of them is kind of it's a mountain / commuter style bike. Okay. So it's comfortable, but it's really designed for the streets.
And that's the one you're riding.
That's right. That's the bike that I'm riding across America. The other model is a unisex type, where it works both for men and women. It's very comfortable because it allows you to easily get on and off, but it's still sporty. So it's fast, it can get you to where you need to go very quickly. And then the third model, that one is a comfort cruiser. So that one is built specifically for comfort. You have a very upright sitting position.
Right.
The seats, all of the components have been designed particularly not for speed, but for comfort of the rider.
So you've been, part of the design on this was obviously using an electric motor, but you did a little bit differently. What you've done is you have, instead of using sort of the traditional hub motor, you've actually got a motor that ties into where the metal
That's right.
bike is. So why did you go that rather than with the hub motor?
So the motor that we're using, it's called a mid-drive motor. And the difference between the hub and the mid-drive is that the mid-drive connects directly to the crankset. So it works the same way that as an individual would. So as you're adjusting the gears, the motor works through the gears. Now, if you compare, let's say, if you take a hub motor, and you think about how it operates when you're climbing hills or when you go on a flat ground, to some degree, it's similar to, let's say, driving a stick shift car and going in single speed the entire time. So it will get you to where you need to go, but it's not necessarily going to do it in the most efficient way, and it won't provide you with the maximum power and torque depending on your circumstances. Now, with a mid-drive motor, because it connects directly to the crankset, we use a 250 watt motor, and it provides as much power as a 500 watt hub motor would. Moreover, it ends up being more efficient as far as battery consumption goes, because as you're climbing a hill, for example, you're able to adjust your gears and use the gears to take the load off the motor and the battery.